Hello and welcome to episode 233 of the Health Oddity podcast. We are joined by a very special guest today who I will introduce you to in a minute. But I was thinking earlier, and I'm pretty sure that she is pound for pound the strongest person we have ever had on the podcast. And that's not the strongest woman, that is the strongest person we've ever had on the podcast. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her in a minute. But first of all, if you're listening on the day of release, like I know many of you do, it is the 14th of February. So we're well into the second month of the year. And before we start, I just want to kind of just say something because a couple of days prior to us recording this podcast, a lot of people who listen to the podcast will know of Steve Cotter, who we had back on the podcast. I think it was about episode 79, I think I said, because I posted it the other day. But Steve was a pioneer of strength, a pioneer of fitness, a pioneer of kettlebell sport, but also martial arts. Like I say, we had him on the podcast, and a couple of days ago, everyone heard the very sad news that he had passed away at the age of 54. So our thoughts, our prayers, our wishes go out to Steve's family and friends and everybody close to him. He was an amazing guy. I've just been listening to, and I think Pete's been listening to as well, the recent Mark Bell Power project that he recorded, I think just a couple of weeks before he passed away. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Steve and everyone close to him. It's a huge loss to the strength and the fitness community. But we will go on, and everyone will go on. And Steve was, he loved what he did. Obviously, he was passionate, and will strive to go on in that ilk and in that vein. So we'll move on with this episode. But just wanted to say that. Go back, listen to Steve if you want on episode 79. It was a great conversation we had with him. And like I say, he was one of the true pioneers of strength, fitness, kettlebells in the States. So, yes, all those wishes off to his family and people close to him. Right, so it is the 14th of February. It is Valentine's Day. And like I say, we are joined by an incredibly strong woman all the way from Tamworth in Staffordshire, which, if you don't know, because I know lots of you are in America and Canada and Australia, that's just north of Birmingham in England. So I didn't really know that, to be honest, but I found it out earlier today.
You don't know where anything is north of, like, the edge of Essex.
North of London, yeah. So that's Tamworth. So we are joined by Chloe Brennan. How are you doing, Chloe?
I'm good, thank you. Very good.
Excellent. Well, it's lovely to speak to you. So, Chloe, just to tee it up slightly, Chloe she's an online strength coach. She is the founding coach of Holistic Strength Coaching, and that's holisticstrengthcoaching.co.uk. You can go to. She's a World and European Strongwoman Champion for under 73 kilo class. She does commentary as well on Strongman, Strongwoman broadcasts. And like I mentioned, she is probably, I was thinking back, we've had Pavlo Cordiaca on, we've had Magnus for Magnusson, Rebecca Roberts, Donna Moore, Lucy Underdown, we've had Sitting Bull UK, haven't we? We've had Gary Clark, we've had Alex Nicole Bennett, and Chloe is, and I was watching a video earlier, I'll tell you what, normally we go, we'll start from the start, because otherwise I'm going to kind of lose my train of thought. But I want to talk to you later about a video I watched earlier. Well, two videos I watched earlier. One where you're on TV with Vernon Kay, and another one where you were doing the Dinnie Stones.
So we've got the pound for pound strongest lady, and then you've just mentioned the guy with the longest legs in the world as well. So there you go.
yeah. So Chloe, I suppose to begin with, do you want to tell us a little about? You mentioned just before we came on, you said you're 29 years of age currently, and tell us. Just start from where you want to start from. Really, your journey in physical training or health or sport or strength training, or kind of how you got to where you are now at a kind of a relatively young age. Just be really interesting to know if that's okay.
Yeah, so sport has always been really important to me. It's something that I have always done for as long as I can remember. I'm really fortunate that my parents were very encouraging with sport, not in a pushy way, but I was always expected to do a sport. And to begin with, like many other people, it's swimming, and then I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate the bloody changing rooms and being wet, and it's all horrible. I don't want to do it. And it was fine. that's okay, but you need to do something else instead. So choose another sport. And I went into gymnastics. And as a kid, I did football, athletics, trampolining, like loads of different things. So I've never had a period in my life where I've not done a sport. Strength training is something that I never really saw myself getting into. I was always very much like individual sport mainly. I did a few team sports, but it wasn't really my thing. And yeah, so strength sports came around. I'd done trampolining for a long time. I'd got to like the lower end of national level there, so not elite, but I was all right at it. And then kept getting injured, wasn't having a great time, and I'd met my partner, who I'm still with now. This is like 11 years ago. And he was really into the gym. And for so long, I just said, I don't want to go to the gym. I already felt like I was quite broad as a girl. So I didn't want to get any bigger. And then I worried that I would get more injured. But one thing led to another. Went to body pump classes, joined the gym, walking around cardio machines, walking into the weights bit, and then quickly scurrying away because I didn't know what I was doing. And then was introduced to a organisation called Iowa, International All-Round Weightlifting Association, which I think is where I started to kind of fall in love with strength training, learning a bit more about it, and getting that first feeling of like, oh, like this is really cool. I can see what my body can do. So really enjoyed that. And I'm still active in that now. I've just qualified as a referee, which is exciting. But yeah, and then that led into Strongwoman, kind of completely by
Can I
accident.
ask Chloe? Can I ask Chloe just quickly before we go on? It's what's really interesting. You said that your parents always expected you to do a sport, or one of you. Were they active as well? Did they partake in sport or training or anything when you were young? Did you see your parents like exercise or train or do any sport growing up?
Yeah, so kind as when I was very small, yes. So my dad used to play semi-professional football, and when he was a kid, he was a gymnast, and he still to this day doesn't let me forget that. I used to be able to do this, and I used to be able to do that. And my mum, when I was young, would be going to the gym. She used to do like fun runs and things like that. But before that was quite a good tennis player as well. So I already knew that they'd always been active. And then as I kind of got a little bit older, less so, and I became the very active one. But I think because they had been active their whole life up to that point when I was very young, they had such an appreciation for the importance of sport in keeping healthy, but also what it can do for your mind and kind of that social element of your life that's so important when you're a kid as well.
No, that's excellent. No, it's just because I've had some conversations recently with a couple of parents whose daughter is quite big or whatever, and they're trying to work out, and they're taking them to see people, and but both of the parents are kind of don't do any exercise, and they're both big themselves, and it's just it's just interesting, just the fact that you were not, like I say, you weren't pushed into it, but you're expected to do something and push the benefit of it, I suppose. You mentioned is it the IOWA? That's
IAWA, yeah.
IAWA, because that's the really unconventional kind of lifts, the old-fashioned lifts, isn't it? Because we had Stevie Shanks on as well before, and I think that's the organisation that he did quite a lot of stuff with in the past. So what was that? Because that's kind of that sounds like that's an unusual starting point, because that's kind of like that's a real like niche. Sort of like niche within a niche within a niche within a niche, isn't it? Like the really old-fashioned kind of lifts that you don't really see people do, and the really strange lifts. So what is that? Because is it your partner is it Matteo Stones? Is that who he is on?
Yeah, he's Matto Jones Stones or
Matto
Stone
Jones
Jones
Stones.
or
Yeah,
something, but he's just Matt.
Just Matt to you. Yeah, just
Yeah,
Matt to
just
you on
Matt.
Instagram.
Yeah.
So was he getting involved in that organization at the same time, or he was in and then he kind of brought you into it, or did you find it together, or?
Yeah, so his mum worked with the son of one of the board of Iowa.
Yeah.
So it was kind of association is why we got into it.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh well, James's dad does this thing. This is weightlifting. Why don't you do this? And Matt thought he was going to like a weightlifting club and rocked up, and it was this like crazy, crazy world.
I see you do the one, don't you, where you start with the bar over your head and you roll it over your body and then kind of bridge press it up, and then you have to or something like that, or roll it the other way, maybe up the body, and then you bridge press it up, don't you, on the
There's
front thing?
so many lifts. There must be like nearly 100, if not 100 odd lifts that could come up in competition. Like it's crazy, but it's like it's very fun, and like as a foundation for strongman, I think it was actually really useful because it got me used to moving my body in very different ways, as opposed to where like a lot of people start in powerlifting, which is very static. Like you're not moving your body in many different ways, and obviously in strongman that's so important. So I think it actually, despite me thinking what on earth am I doing, laid some really solid foundations.
Excellent. And just how tall are you, Chloe? Because I just want, just out of interest.
I'm about 5'7".
Oh, okay, so you're not small then. No, because I see a lot of the videos, obviously, that you do with Lucy Underdown as well, don't you? And I saw
All
one.
my friends are massive. This is my problem.
Yeah.
But
It's
I'm not
difficult to
actually
get the
that small.
scale. Yeah, it's difficult to get the scale. Yeah, because she's really, because Lucy came to my
I fully empathise with that, because all of my mates when I was growing up were like 6'2", and 6'3", and I'm like 5'7" at best.
I went from like
5'8".
being at school and then obviously being a gymnast, being like the biggest person, like the biggest girl in every room, to going into strongman where I'm just like dwarfed every day.
So you started in the IAWA, and then you were just going to, before I kind of rudely interrupted and asked you another question, you were about to go into I think where that led, or how that led into strongman, strongwoman kind of stuff. So yeah, how did that happen?
It's a long story, kind of, but I basically got thrust into the world of strongman at one competition that I didn't plan to compete at. It was a men's competition, and was just like, Chloe will do this, and I was borrowed a belt in my shirt, normal clothes, thrust into it, and then the guy who was running the British pathway at the time was like, you might be all right at this, so come down to the gym and give it a go. And then from there I just didn't escape, and what was meant to be I might have a go, and thinking I was going to go into powerlifting after Iowa turned into a bit of a wild ride in strongwoman.
Yeah. So how did that develop? Did you, because I know from speaking to probably like Rebecca, Lucy, and Donna, because the sport, I mean, how long have you been doing strongwoman for then? How many years have you been involved in it?
My first competition was 2016, and I competed basically as soon as I started.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I think because now, I mean, so 2016's what's that? 9 years ago this year, isn't it? So, but I know that there's far more women's comps and things obviously now, and there's beginners and novice and intermediates and opens, and it's far. But 9 years ago, there weren't that many kind of women's comps around and stuff. So I presume you went in at quite a high kind of level straight away almost, do you? You just kind of, there wasn't, you probably didn't go into all the different weight classes and that kind of thing. You just,
So I think I came in just as it was starting to get more popular. So my first competition was at Trojan Strength in Bristol, and that was like an under 75 kilo competition. My second one was a novice one in Sussex, and then after that it was straight into national qualifiers. And then that was my path.
So for any budding lifters out there, that's how you do it, right? You do 2 competitions and then you just get on the national team. Yeah.
Because I saw you recently, I watched the official Strongman Games on the official Strongman channel, and I was going to ask one of the things I got written down, because obviously the reason I say about your, well, let's touch on this video then that I saw, the Dinnie Stones one, I think from Rogue, was possibly 2022. And I presume that was that out in the States, or was that in one of the ones in the UK?
No, that was Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. Because I saw that with the Dinnie. So there, I presume that they're like replica Dinnie Stones that they use out there. But the video that I think it was, again, it was like a Lawrence Charlet one, because you can hear him kind of talking and Liz, I think, talking as well. And you've got the Dinnies there, everyone's watching. And I think Donna goes out and doesn't lift them. And then I think Rebecca goes out and doesn't lift them. And then you go out, and then you hear like Loz say, "Oh, it would be amazing if she does this," you know. And then you're so much. I mean, obviously, like Rebecca's probably nearly twice your size and weight. Donna, I'm not sure what she was then, but she's a lot bigger than you. And you met, and you know, went for the first lift, and I think your front hand kind of slipped off of it, and you fell backwards, and then but you went back out, and you kind of lifted them. And I think on the video it said like you were 140 pounds, and the combined weight of the Dinnies is like 732 pounds, and I worked out it's like 5.2 times your body weight. And you lifted them, you know, and you had 3 judges I saw laying on the floor to check that everything was off the floor at the same time. How was that for you? I mean, was that a long time in specific training to do that, or was this another one of them, Chloe will have a go, and then
Right, so there was a previous time of training. So I went and did the ones in Scotland in 2019. So I knew I could do it, but what I was actually going out to Ohio for was the Arnold Amateur World Championships, which I came second in, and that was like buzzing, life goal, amazing. So they do the rogue record breakers at the Arnold every year, and I could see they were inviting all the pro strong women, so the open class women, but hardly any of these women had actually done the Dinnies before, and I was like, hold up, I'm gonna be there, like why haven't I been invited to this thing? So I emailed out loads of people, asked if I could get there. So this is like maybe 2 weeks before we fly out for the competition. Get hold of Jan Todd eventually, and she's like, let me know what you can do. So I sent her loads of videos of all my Dinnie training from 2019, and she was like, okay, you're in, let's go. So about a week before we flew out, because obviously my prep had been for the world champs, me and Matt downstairs got on pins with probably like 50 kilos on one, 20 kilos on the other, just to go over my positioning. And yeah, it was, well, let's do this then. Like, it was more a mental preparation. I think I just knew that I could do it. So yeah, I was physically strong because I'd done the whole prep for the competition. But yeah, I hadn't done any training on the Dinnies before that in that cycle in that year.
And were you that? Because it looked on the video like you were the last one to go up to do it. Were you the last one? Did people go on after you, or were you the only woman to lift it? Or
I was the first and only woman to ever lift those particular stones without straps. But I went last because I'd literally just done an axle floor to overhead event on the main stage. So they were very kind and went, instead of drawing names out of a hat, Chloe, we're going to let you go last so you can have a bit of a rest.
You want to say
I wasn't being rude there. I've literally just Googled it. And there's only 14 women who've actually lifted the Dinnie Stones. It says here 3 without straps. So are you one of those?
Yeah, technically yes. I'm not happy with the lift that I did in Scotland, but the replica one was without straps and was unquestionable. Like, it was so good.
But that's good, because obviously there's only like 300. Well, it says 333 people here. Yeah, and we've had a few on here, obviously. But for women, yeah, there's only ever 14, which is, so you're one of them. That's amazing. So
did you say it's only 3 without straps? Is that what you said?
And only 3 without straps.
Yeah, because I know that. Yeah, because it's incredible. We've had quite a few on now, haven't we? Talking about the Dinnie, especially Stevie Shanks. Obviously, was the one.
We should get the full collection. We'll go for the full set after we've been up to the Highland Games and everything in the gathering. Do you go to the gathering, by the way?
Yes.
Because my holiday this year is being we're going to be away for 2 weeks, and it's all around that weekend. So we're going to be there for the Highland Games and there for the gathering as well. After we had Stevie Shanks on, so that'll be good.
It's incredible.
Excellent. No, that's amazing. So, and you say you came second at that event as well in the Strongwoman comp that you did at that Rogue event as well, yeah?
Yeah. So I had the finals of that competition the day after I did the Dinnie record.
Yeah. Wow. But that must have been amazing. I mean, it looked like you got a huge Raw when you went to go, because obviously it kind of added to the drama, I suppose, that you know, the front hand had slipped off the first time and you went back and everyone was on their feet like roaring for you to do it, you know, and the fact that you were so much smaller was yeah, incredible. There's a couple of questions I've got around that a bit later on, actually. And then, yeah, this is just a bit of fun, I suppose. This one I saw you on, where I think it was a couple of years ago. You were on, like, it looked like, I mean, I don't really watch like TV as such, like normal primetime TV, but it looked like you were on this thing with Vernon Kay and what's his name, Nick Grimshaw, is it? It was called Game of Talents or something.
I think the fact it's not been on since says a lot about the program.
But no one saw it because I just was looking through videos and stuff, and it looked like you kind of had to come out and stand there, and they had to guess what your talent was. Yeah. And it was either like you're a strong person, you were like a snake charmer, or you were something to do with animals or pets or something. And it was funny because I could see you were stood there really trying not to look strong, you know, you had a dress on and heels and just like, right, I mustn't make it.
Can I just add, like, they were all like, oh, are you nervous about pulling the truck? And I was like, I can pull this little pickup, like, this is fine, that's my comfort zone. I was like, but these heels, I had to get the producer to catch me as I walked off the stage because it was like a really slippy slope as I walked off. It was terrible.
Yeah, because I could see you kind of intentionally like you don't want them to think straight away you're a strong woman. And then you pulled this like a pickup across the stage with loads of people in the back and stuff. So how did that come about? Was that just, you know, someone had obviously seen what you'd done and had reached out to you to get you on TV kind of thing?
Yeah, someone had reached out on Instagram, and I mean, I get a lot of kind of casting messages and ignore most of them because I'm like, well, this isn't real. But for some reason, I must have felt inclined to respond to this one. And yeah, that said, we're doing this thing for ITV or whatever channel it was. Come down, and it was like during the whole lockdown situation. So I was like, well, it'll get me out of the house for a bit. So let's go.
No, that's excellent. And then one of the things I want to ask is, obviously we'll talk about all your training and things, but you're obviously, so you used to compete, I think, at like maybe under 64 kilos, did you? And now you're up at like the under 73 class. Yeah. Is that where you're at the moment? So, and you're, like you said, you're 5'7", and I mean, the weights that you lift in terms of the, say, for example, I saw some deadlifting stuff the other day where you were doing like, you're deadlifting, say, 220 kilos, I think you did 7 with 190. The super yoke you did at the OSG, which was inside the car where you picked the car up and you were so fast with that. And that was like, was it 280 kilos or more than that?
Yeah, 280.
280, but yeah. So, I mean, your body looks like it shouldn't be able to lift that amount of weight. Do you know what I mean? Because this is it's gonna be, I'm asking because for everyone really, but you've obviously got a huge amount of technique and tensile strength and neurological kind of strength and focus to lift. But I mean, have you always been stronger than you looked, if you like? I mean, when you first started strength training, were you stronger than most of the women around you, or is it something that you've really kind of, I'm not saying, I know you've trained hard to get as strong as you are now, obviously, but was strength something that came quite naturally to you once you started it? Did you have a natural leaning towards it, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not something that when I was a kid, I would never have said I was particularly strong. But then when I look at the kind of sports that I excelled in, so it was anything to do with power. So like trampoline, and I was very good at, the particular discipline I was better at was double mini trampoline, which is more like a vault, I guess. Sprinting I was good at, high jump I was good at, long jump I was good at. Would have been a good thrower, but didn't want to do it because it wasn't typically girly, even though I was a massive tomboy. But I've always been kind of more drawn to power type sports. And I think when I did start strength training, I think the first time I deadlifted with Matt, I maybe got like 90 kilos, which is like a pretty solid starting point, really. And yeah, I did progress very quickly. So I guess I must have some natural talent for it.
Yeah, so you must be like more sort of higher proportion of like fast twitch muscle fibers and things like that, because you're not like a marathon runner insurance type.
I've started running recently, and I've done 3 2K runs, and I'm very proud.
Okay. I mean,
it's funny though, because we obviously had Kodiaka on, didn't we? And he's really good at like Conan's wheel, and he wipes the floor with everybody at that, doesn't he? But he's not the strongest guy. Like if you watch him in World's Strongest Man, he's like everyone's way bigger than him. I mean, he's tall, but he's more ripped, isn't he? But it sounds like you're a bit more kind of like you're not the biggest person there, but you like all round you can do the lot, which is brilliant.
I think that's what's like, I'm not particularly like, I am statically strong, but in comparison to my competition, I'm not the most statically strong, but I am very consistent, so I'm quite good at everything, as opposed to like very, very, very strong. Like I'm just good at adapting, I guess, good at moving. I'm quite athletic.
That's great though, because that's a good metaphor for life, isn't it? As well, like you can try to be good at really good at one thing, but there'll always be someone better. And if you want to be good at that thing, you have to dedicate your entire life to it, or you can just be quite good at everything and win.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when we had Magnus on, he kind of said that if you can place like in the top 3, like in every event, you know, top 1, top 2, top 3, you know, in every single event across the board and be consistent, you'll usually win the comps. You know what I mean? If you can, or your podium at every, you know, if you can place there, which is fantastic. But you said the first time you deadlifted 90 kilos, but I mean, at that time, you were probably 60 kilos, were you, or around that?
No, I was heavier then.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about probably 76, 77 kilos. And then I actually cut down when I started Strongman. I was told you'll be competitive in this weight class. So shrunk myself a lot.
But still, I mean, still over a body weight deadlift, you know, for the first time doing it is incredible. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And do you find that, so where do you actually train now? Do you train a lot at home because we had John Gibb on as well, didn't we? I forgot who was the UK's strongest stone lifter, or Britain's. He won the Scottish, and then I think he won the British strongest stone lifter, didn't he? But he has his shed of strength, which he showed us, and you've got your conservatory of strength. Do you do a lot of training in your conservatory, or do you go to another kind of a gym where you do most of your training, or where do you tend to train mostly?
I don't like training at home. It's a great setup, but if I have to, I will, and I'll sometimes do it for convenience. But I just find I do so much at home. Like home is where I work, home is where I relax, where I play with my dog, where I chill out with Matt. And I like to, I don't know, the gym for me and training is just something else. It's somewhere where I can go and just switch off, so having that in another place is really helpful. And also, like, I like to throw shit about and I can't do that at home. So yeah, I train at a gym called Rhinos in Tamworth, and I also train out of CrossFit Tamworth, so they let me keep a lot of my kit there, and it's a really great facility, so I've got a good couple of options.
Yeah, no, that's great. And in terms of, I mean, I know I've seen some videos from you recently as well, where you've mentioned, or where you do quite a lot as well. And I know that you do your coaching, your holistic strength coaching. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that, and you know, when you started it, why you started it, why the holistic? Because I've seen a lot of stuff that you post as well around kind of the books that you've read around kind of mindset and psychology, and a lot of the videos you do, which we'll talk about later as well. They're you do very excellent brief sort of technique tip videos, but then you also do videos around, you know, getting your head in the right place and kind of that personal development, I suppose, that kind of thing. But yeah, where did holistic strength coaching come from and develop?
So yeah, it was birthed officially in 2020. But coaching is something that I've done for a very long time. So like, I think I qualified in my trampoline and coaching maybe around 2015. So it's something I'm very familiar with. Then I went and did my nursing, and while I was doing my nursing, I was getting very good at strongman. And I just found that in my nursing career, I really wanted to help people, but the NHS just didn't give me the resources to help people. I just couldn't do it. I was just firefighting, or people didn't want to be helped. They'd been referred to the service I was in, and just, I could give them all the advice under the sun, but they wouldn't follow it because they weren't invested in it.
What were you in? What area of nursing were you in, Chloe? What kind of service were you offering then?
So I was a learning disability nurse, and I worked mainly in the remit of behaviour. So I first worked in adults, and then I worked within child and adolescent mental health services. Like I say, mainly in behaviour, but also crossing over into mental health as well, and did some. I was redeployed during COVID onto an acute female mental health ward as well. So mainly around the mind. Which and I loved it. Like, I really loved my job, and I find human behavior fascinating, and I think that's part of what drove me to be the kind of coach that I am now. So yeah, it came about because I was like, right, I have this thing that I really love, well, these two things that I really love, but one isn't, I'm not getting enough out of it. And I don't know if you've heard of the term ikigai, and it's like what you enjoy, what you can earn money from, how you can serve others, all those different things. And I didn't know that term at the time, but now I realize all this time I've been working towards my ikigai. So
is it like trying to find that? It's that kind of almost like a big Venn diagram, isn't it? And it's where it's all those things where they intersect. So it's where
it's your purpose, basically.
What I love about what you've just said there is you were already working towards this and you didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And that's when you know. That's when you know you're kind of doing the right thing, because when like you find out there's actually a name for it and you've been doing it anyway, you're like, oh, okay, I'll carry on doing this then, because it's got to work then, hasn't it? I love that.
Absolutely. And I was really kind of reserved at first because I was worried about programming, and I used to think, oh, there's this like magic formula to programming that I don't know, like how can I do this? But now I realize actually programming is the easiest part of coaching, and what really makes people improve is being a coach, which is being there for people, actively listening to people. If a challenge comes up, why has that challenge come up? Let's take a few steps back. Let me ask you questions rather than just answering your questions. Let me learn more about you, and when we learn more together, like, we can reach higher heights. So yeah, it came about just because I wanted to give people more than just a program, which at the time was what strongman coaching was.
Yeah, and you've got a few kind of, I seen on the website, you've got a few coaches now who you work with. I think you've got like a physiotherapist as well. You've got a nutritionist on there as well, I think. So is that something that you've just kind of, you've built this network and you've kind of organically developed over the last kind of four or so years? Is that right?
Yeah, so the big growth came last year. So the year prior I'd worked with a business mentor. Like, I was kind of cracking on with what I was doing, but the way in which I work, like, I put so much into every client and I was massively undercharging. So I couldn't, like, it was very hard for me to make a decent living because I was given so much but not asking for anything in return, I guess. And it is a business. So I worked with a business mentor and we kind of worked on how I can manage my time better, what I should be charging, these kinds of things. And then as that kind of, I think, opened my mind to growing. Like, before it was just like, I'm a coach, self-employed, sole trader, this is me. And then I was like, oh, actually, I can help a lot more people if I do grow this. So the first thought was, let's hire some coaches because I can't take on any more people and keep the level of service that I've got. So I was absolutely bricking it. But I asked two people who, they weren't clients of mine anymore, but I'd worked with them in the past. I knew they were great coaches and they knew how I worked, which was really important. They knew my values. So I was really scared, but I reached out to them and were like, would you possibly, it's okay if you don't, like, would you maybe want to be part of this thing I'm doing? And they were like, yes, all in, which was fantastic. And then I was doing a lot of face-to-face technique work with Desi, who is our physio now, and I was just she's always been really keen and curious about what I do, and I was like, oh, well, you're a physio, and we had this conversation like, wouldn't it be great if we had this resource within my coaching business where people could go and ask questions, or if they did get an injury or a niggle, I could ask you rather than having to rely on an email from someone else. And it just kind of has snowballed, and now we've got a amazing team.
Yeah, and is a lot of what, it's interesting because we had Sean Cole on last week, didn't we, Pete? And he was talking about he's got a gym down in Portsmouth, and a kind of a wellness club down there that does all contrast therapy and stuff now. And he's a former naval guy, and he said that it was that he did a lot of coaching, a lot of business type coaching as well, and realized that, you know, you can help more people if you systemize, and if you, have more people involved, you can actually do more good. You know, if you do kind of share things around a bit and open up a bit to it. But is most of what you do online, or is there a practical sort of physical element that you coach people within your kind of more local area and stuff as well, or?
So it's predominantly online. I don't do regular like PT sessions, I guess, but I do like I guess you would call it like a technique clinic. People can book in, come see me if they've got a particular lift that they're wanting to work on, and we break it down like that. That is what I love. Like, I don't get much out of counting Sandra's reps for her, or like loading bars and doing the same thing every week for people that really aren't interested in improving in any way. They're just paying a PT because they think they should go to the gym. It doesn't set me on fire. It doesn't get me going. Whereas when I'm breaking down technique, like I did a recent YouTube video with Lucy Underdown, you can probably, if you've watched that or go and watch that, you'll see that passion that I'm on about. Like, it just excites me so much being able to be like, okay, just think about this and just move slightly this way, and it clicks. That, like, no better feeling. Like, I love it. So I do one-off kind of technical sessions as opposed to general PT.
Yeah,
it's funny though, because I think once you know a lift, like you say, then the programming behind it, all you've got to get someone to do is just stick to the programming, and then something will show up and there'll be a slight technique shift later on when it gets heavier, which there always is. But that's really interesting because, like, you know, I mean, lots of people, I think, just like to have someone to talk to and stand next to them and count reps, don't they? Which is nothing wrong with. But if that's not your thing, it's like, no, I want to make people realize their true potential, which is, you know, and finding people who want to be able to do that is tough. But finding people who are receptive to the mindset side of it, which then makes them want to do it, is the skill, I suppose. And that's what you sound like. Sounds like you're really good at that.
so yeah, it's interesting hearing about like I say, I knew you were a nurse, but that it was more the kind of the psychological, the mental health, the behavioral sort of side of nursing. And then, like I think I mentioned, the fact that a lot of your videos as well. If anyone, we'll obviously give you a big shout at the end for the Instagram and things, but a lot of your Instagram is really nice, kind of bite-size little lessons, you know, or little tips that people can use. But they're physical ones, which are great. But then you also kind of do, I presume, with your coaching as well, like you mentioned, you want to give people the whole package or the holistic approach to things. So you also have lots of kind of tips around sort of mindset and focus and that kind of thing. Is that something that you've always had yourself, or you've developed through reading and learning and through working in nursing and through coaching in many different ways for over the years? Is that something that's just developed over time?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just something that like naturally grabs my attention. I just find it interesting, and I find it fascinating looking at who I was 10 years ago and who I am now, because I'm a different person. Like, my approach to life, I was very pessimistic. I had very low self-esteem, didn't think very much to myself. And now, like, I'm really quite confident and I'm really proud of who I am and what I've done. And I think if I can pass on even like small bits of knowledge that have really helped me to other people, that, like, why would I keep it to myself? Like, it's really helpful to share that stuff. And I just read things and I find it fascinating, and I'm like, I've got to share this. Like, this is so obvious, but you just don't realize it. So, and I'm just about to start quite an intense course coming up soon on like transformational coaching, which brings in a few different kind of techniques and models. So yeah, I'm just a bit of a nerd, really.
No, we are on here. I mean, Pete and I, we're always reading, you know, personal development, self-help, business book, you know, all this kind of stuff. You know, we're always on it, and talk about it a lot on the podcast. So that's why it's great that I recognize you. I think you had Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. You had I've got a bookshelf here with like loads of all that kind of stuff on. Yeah. Oh, you got fantastic. Yeah. No, it's great. No, so I mean,
The funny thing is, though, we're talking about this, right? And it's like when you're into it, it feels like you've just said you end up in an echo chamber. You're like, well, everybody knows this, and it's like they don't.
Yeah.
And I met a lady yesterday who works with. She used to work as a teacher, and she doesn't do that anymore and everything. But she reached out, and then I went to meet her for a coffee. She's in the local area, and she deals with parents, because she ultimately wants to help kids, but then she realized her skill set is in helping the parents who can then help kids. Because if kids are struggling, then parents struggle because the kids are struggling, and then it's just a big, like, clusterfuck, I suppose, for want of a better word. And she helps the parents, and she was sitting and like during the conversation we had, it was amazing. But it was kind of like, people just need to be told that they can do anything, that they are better than they think they are. That if they've got low self-esteem, if they're pessimistic, all of that, they just need to be shown that they don't have to be like that. And then, but you can be shown that and go, okay, and do it for a couple of days, but then you go back to where you were. So it's having someone like a coach help you along the way, and then eventually become self-sufficient, don't you? And then ultimately, most people, I would say, who do that want to then tell everyone else about it and go, here's what you do. So that's what's fantastic, because like just the quick journey you've just given over the last 10 years there is, because people might look at you now and you're 29 years old, right? It's not very old. Especially on this podcast. But you know what I mean? And they might go, well, you've always done that. You've always been sporty. You've always done, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, just because you do it, I mean, you can be doing that to mask whatever's going on in your head as well, like to keep you out, So yeah, I think that's amazing. So like, what would you say to someone who's listening, who might want to join your coaching sort of world? What's the first step for the mindset, would you say?
So if someone wants to join us, just reach out. Like, just reach out. We're happy to talk. And I think, like, if you're talking about not even joining coaching, but just starting mindset stuff, like something we get all our clients to do, both on our one-to-one program, and we've got our group program, the Power Up Project as well, which is, I think it's amazing. I'm biased, but it is great. So one of the tasks that we get people to do, all of our clients, no matter what program they're on, is just say something wonderful about yourself every day. It's really simple. Write it down, because we're taught to speak so negatively about ourselves. Like, I've literally, before this podcast, I just watched a reel with Ilona Maher on it, and an interviewer is asking her, like, so how do you deal with imposter syndrome? And she's like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I don't have that. And like, but we're also taught, like, oh, you must have imposter syndrome if you're successful, or like, you can't be proud of what you've done, you can't like who you are. And that's drilled so hard into us that actually, if we start like rewriting the script and writing things down of, like, I don't know, it can be so simple. Like, I made a great cup of tea today, I said something kind to someone, or I'm good at what I do. And if you keep telling yourself that every day, like that concept of neuroplasticity, right? Like, our brains are adaptable. And if you start actually telling yourself a better story, eventually your brain will, whether you want to call it be tricked or start to believe, like, it will start to believe it, and you will become that person that you want to be.
I had a guy at the weekend. So this walking thing that I do, I've got an app for it, and that can fill a diary in at the end of it with 3 wins and how did it make you feel and all that. And this guy was like, because you have to fill in 3 wins. You can't just do 2. You have to do 3. He said, can you change that? Because like, he goes, sometimes I can't find 3. And I was like, you're looking at it all wrong. Of course you can find 3. You know what I mean? Because people talk themselves out of it. Oh, well, no. And it's like, no, you can't. If you can't find 3 wins out of like 1 walk, it's, you're going to struggle.
Well, people think there's no point in saying a win or something positive if it's not like something massive. So I've had clients say to me, well, it's easy for you because you've won this, or you've done this massive thing. And I'm like, yeah, but do you know the things that I write down? Like, I have a thing in my I have a journal where I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. On the day last year where I won the Natural World Championships, not one of those things I was grateful for was about winning that. It was the smaller things, and it's the little things that we need to acknowledge more, that I think actually have a bigger impact, and people need to stop thinking that when they're trying to find wins or gratitude, it has to be something huge. Like, it's the simple things that make the biggest difference.
So when you won that, right, had you already envisioned the fact that you were like what it would be like to win it?
Yes.
So therefore, when you won it, you've already won it before.
Yes.
You've been there. So like you say, it's not the big thing, is it? And like there's a lot of this goes on with sports people, doesn't it? It's like when they win the thing, they'll be happy, and then they're not, and they can't figure out why. And it's like it's an age-old thing, isn't it? So I think that's amazing. So you sound like you're already there with that of like, well, it doesn't matter about the thing because I was like, I've already won it in my head. So all I had to do was turn up on the day and win it. And then if I didn't, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I did. But that wasn't my biggest win of the day.
But I did have to learn that. Like, so the year before, I'd won Europe's Strongest Woman and then the Natural Worlds again. And that year, I think I did think that winning the thing would make me happy. And I felt great for about an hour. And then I had like the biggest crash ever. And I think that's the moment where I was like, I need to start appreciating other things in my life that aren't this sport, because you go through a bit of an identity thing, because you have to put so much, if you want to be the best at something, you have to put everything into it. You have to give your whole self. But then when you win the thing and you realize it's not life changing, it like nobody remembers, you're still you, then I think that gave me that kick of like, oh, what else makes me happy? Which I think this year is why I was like, you know what? This isn't the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's cool, but it's not the be all and end all.
The other thing I think is, and I don't struggle with this, but I'm trying to get my head around it, is you've learned that, right? You had to go through that thing last year to learn the thing about this year. And everyone has to go through something to learn something.
Yeah.
And then as coaches, it's kind of like you want to show people that that doesn't have to happen, and you can figure it all out if you just do the things. But people have to go through that, like something like that, otherwise you don't really learn. So it's a kind of a struggle, isn't it? You don't want to go like into something and down into the doldrums and your lowest ebb and then come out, which some people do, and then they're more powerful on the other side, and that's all great. But you don't want everyone to have to go through that. So it's like, you know, I really struggle with that, because it's kind of like,
it's like experience is the best teacher, isn't it? Ultimately, you have to go through it. But some things can help if you have a mentor or a coach, you know, to kind of signpost you along the way and let you know what to expect. But many people, I think, I did use what you were saying earlier about what was the phrase that you used? The imposter syndrome stuff. On Monday, I had a really long day at the gym because I had a member of staff off on annual leave. So I'd worked 15 hours from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And my last client of the day, 8 till 9, came in and she asked me about Blue Monday. It's Blue Monday, I think it was meant to be. And she said, I nearly bit her head off. I didn't mean, not in a bad way, but I was just like, it's ridiculous. You know, she goes, oh, we had an email come round today at work because it was Blue Monday. And they were saying that they were putting Kit Kats and biscuits and things in the room to come and have a chat if you want to talk to someone because you might be depressed. And I said, I just said, you know, I don't watch the news. I don't read the papers. I don't subscribe to Blue Monday. You know what I mean? It was, you know, and
there's a formula for it.
I know I was looking at it. It was designed by like a travel firm or something. It's
a travel firm to sell holidays, yeah.
To say you must be really depressed. It's dark. The weather's rubbish. It's cold outside. So, book a holiday. You know.
You see, here's the problem I have with this, because someone sent me an email the other week, and it said like, "Oh, did you realise that May is a National Walking Awareness Month or something like that?" Right? And I'm like, "That's lovely, but we go walking every week." Like I run a group that go walking every week and twice a week in the summer. So I don't need to do anything for a summer month. We do it every week. That's the point. And people should do it every day as far as I'm concerned, obviously, because we need to walk. So that thing with Blue Monday, it's like, oh, we've got all this stuff in there in case you're feeling depressed, just for a day. And then the rest of the days you can do whatever the hell you like. And we're
you can filter it all the other day.
Like, really?
That's what she said. She said it was an email from HR, you know, so it was ticking the box, basically. Dear me. Anyway, I'm aware of the time, Chloe, and it's 5 to 3, and we've nearly been on for an hour. I feel like we could talk for ages because we're just getting started on the kind of the psychology and the mindset stuff, but it's absolutely brilliant. And I'm so glad to speak to you because, like I say, I think that when people start following you, and I think is it Chloe Brennan X? Is it on?
Yeah.
Is
I
that
created it when I was about 15 and I just left it. I thought I don't need to change this. This is me.
Is that your? I know you're obviously you're on YouTube as well, but is Instagram your kind of main social media thing that you post most stuff on, or where are you? Where do you want people to go to follow you and whatnot?
Yeah, so Instagram is a great place if you want short, sharp, sweet content. I'm very active on there, and then my YouTube channel, if you put in Chloe Brennan Strongwoman, I'm posting weekly videos on there, and there's a mix of kind of my strength and fitness journey, me being silly and trying different things, collabing with other athletes. So yeah, it's try to be nice and varied, but hopefully entertaining and
Yeah,
useful.
so it's Chloe Brennan X on Instagram, Chloe Brennan Strongwoman on YouTube. You'll find it, and then Holistic Strength Coaching.co.uk for the website for the online coaching and things like that, which is absolutely great. Yeah, so nice to speak to you, Chloe. Thank you so much. And yeah, so when is your next comp? What have you got coming up? Have you got something coming up quite soon?
This is another wormhole we could go into. TBC.
DVC. Okay. DVC. Right. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chloe, for coming on. It's brilliant. I mean, hopefully maybe down the line we'll get to speak to you again because like I say, that's a great introduction to you, but I get the feeling there's so much more we could talk about, obviously. So yeah, please do follow Chloe. Obviously, like I said, any interest at all in strength or strong woman stuff, the practical tips are absolutely fantastic, really useful on there. We will be back next week for episode 234 with Pavel Macek, who is coming on from Prague in the Czech Republic. I think he'll be our first Czech guest. Will he, Pete? Have we had any other Czech guests on? I don't think we have.
Not that I know of.
No, we've had Ukraine.
I don't even know how to
obviously.
say it. Is it Czechia or whatever these days? I don't know. I can't remember.
Czechoslovakian, is it?
No.
No, that's Czech Republic. That's an
Yeah,
old
you
one.
kidding, right? That hasn't existed for like about 40
Sorry,
years.
I'm showing my age. Sorry. It's very anyway. Yeah, so we will be on with Pavel next week. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. And especially if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, is where we're trying to get lots of reviews on there at the moment. And if you are on YouTube, give us a subscribe on there as well. So we'll be back next week for episode 234. Thank you very much, Chloe.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. And thank you, Mr. Peter Lant. And we will see you next week with Pavel Macek. Until then, bye-bye.